Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, served from 1933 to 1945, longer than any other American president. He was the only president elected 4 times.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror.
He led his country through the worst depression in history, and the worst war the world had ever known.
The unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
He also ushered in the New Deal, put stronger controls on business, and spent billions of dollars on public works.
We face the future with confidence and with courage. We are Americans.
Probably no other president since Abraham Lincoln was so deeply loved, or bitterly hated, as Franklin D. Roosevelt. Hi, I'm Jerry Dart at the Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library and Museum in Hyde Park, New York.
And this latest addition to the archives of America is dedicated at a moment when government of the people by themselves is being attacked everywhere. It is therefore proof, if any proof is needed, that our confidence in the future of democracy has not diminished in this nation and will not diminish.
Franklin Roosevelt was born on January 30th, 1882, on his father's estate overlooking the Hudson River here in Hyde Park. He was the only child of James Roosevelt, a wealthy vice president of the Delaware and Hudson Railway, and his second wife, Sarah. Franklin's mother was a domineering woman who brought him up with loving firmness. His father made sure he had all the advantages wealth could buy, but taught him that being wealthy also brought with it the responsibility to help others. The future president was taught by private tutors and could speak and write both German and French. At the age of 14, he entered Groton, a prep school in Massachusetts. He made good grades, but was shy and had few close friends. In 1900, he enrolled at Harvard University, majored in history, joined the rowing and football teams, and was elected secretary of the Freshman Glee Club. Then in 1903, he was appointed editor of the Harvard Crimson, the school newspaper. Roosevelt and his distant cousin, Eleanor Roosevelt, had known each other since childhood. They began to date seriously while he was in college, and were married on March 17, 1905. President Theodore Roosevelt, Eleanor's uncle and Franklin's 5th cousin, gave the bride away. Eventually, the Roosevelts had 6 children, 5 sons and a daughter. FDR, as Roosevelt had come to be known, was first introduced to politics in 1910 when he ran for the state Senate as a Democrat. He proved to be a bold and skillful politician. In 1912, he helped get Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, elected as president against his own cousin, Theodore Roosevelt, a Republican. As a thank you, Wilson appointed Franklin Roosevelt the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. In 1914, Roosevelt sought the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate, but lost by a wide margin. By the 1920 Democratic National Convention, Roosevelt had become a national figure and was nominated as vice president on Governor James Cox's presidential ticket. Cox and Roosevelt campaigned for U.S. membership in the League of Nations, but the Republican candidates, Senator Warren G. Harding of Ohio and Governor Calvin Coolidge of Massachusetts, easily defeated them. It would be 8 years before FDR would enter politics again. On August 8, 1921, he fell from a friend's boat into the frigid water near his family's summer home in Canada. The next day, he felt tired and could hardly get out of bed. He had contracted a paralyzing disease called polio. It took years for Roosevelt to learn to walk again, time he devoted to advancing himself in democratic politics. In 1928, he ran for governor of New York. He barely defeated his Republican opponent. As New York's governor from 1928 to 1932, Roosevelt supported a variety of progressive laws, obtained tax relief for farmers, established the first unemployment relief system in New York, and brought about tighter control of public utilities. By the presidential elections of 1932, he had gained wide respect for his work as governor. It was no secret that he would seek the Democratic presidential nomination. He was nominated, and chose John Garner, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, as his vice president. The Republicans renominated President Herbert Hoover, and his vice president, Charles Curtis. Roosevelt flew to the convention in Chicago to accept the nomination, the first time a presidential nominee had made an acceptance speech at a national convention.
We face the future with confidence and with courage. We are Americans.
He promised a New Deal to lead the nation out of the Great Depression and said he would set up economic safeguards to prevent future depressions. To show the voters that he was physically able to be president, he campaigned in 38 states.
We face that crisis. We face it with singleness of purpose, and above all, with faith. Keep that faith constant. Keep that faith high. So shall we win through to a better day.
It paid off. Roosevelt received 472 electoral votes to only 59 for President Hoover. By the time Roosevelt took the oath of office in 1933, the economic depression had grown steadily worse.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror. Farmers find no markets for their produce, and the savings of many years in thousands of families are gone. More important, a host of unemployed citizens face the grim problem of existence, and an equally great number toil with little return. Only a foolish optimist can deny the dark realities of the moment.
On March 9th, Congress began a special session in which Roosevelt submitted recovery and reform laws that he felt would end the Great Depression. Congress passed nearly all of his important bills. This special session came to be known as the 100 Days. On March 12, 1933, he gave the first of his famous fireside chats.
We have provided the machinery to restore our financial system, and it is up to you to support and make it work. It is your problem, my friends, no less than it is mine. Together, we cannot fail.
In those hard times, the entire nation looked forward to FDR's fireside chats. He called his reforms the New Deal, and they included wide-ranging programs designed to renew confidence in America. At his request, Congress appropriated $500 million for the Federal Emergency Relief Administration. In the winter of 1933-34, the government started the Civil Works Administration, so local authorities could build streets, roads, bridges, and schoolhouses. The Civilian Conservation Corps gave work and training to 2.5 million young people. And the Works Progress Administration provided work for people without jobs and employed an average of 2 million workers a year between 1935 and 1943. Congress also passed laws to protect investments in stocks and bonds, which helped the oil and railroad industries, small businesses, and homeowners. Amendment 21 to the Constitution ended Prohibition. The Social Security Act of 1935
gives at least some protection to 30 millions of our citizens who will reap direct benefits through unemployment compensation, through old age pensions, and through increased services for the protection of children and the prevention of ill health.
And the National Labor Relations Act of 1935 greatly strengthened the right of workers to bargain for higher wages. Slowly, America's economy was recovering, and FDR easily won re-election to a second term in 1936. Eleanor Roosevelt toured the country, talking to people and reported on the progress of the New Deal. Meanwhile, war clouds were building over Europe. And Japan was preparing for battle. In the mid-1930s, President Roosevelt realized that the Japanese attacks on China were a threat to world peace. And when Adolf Hitler, the leader of Germany, invaded Poland, he knew World War II was coming. Congress, however, had passed the Neutrality Act, designed to keep America out of the war. That all changed, though, on December 7, 1941. Japanese planes had attacked the U.S. Pacific Fleet at anchor in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii.
Since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
3 days later, Germany and Italy, known as the Axis powers, declared war on the United States. Americans realized that the nation faced a serious situation. War now extended across both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans.
In this year 1942, we shall produce 60,000 planes. Let no man say it cannot be done. It must be done, and we have undertaken to do it.
FDR was faced with a crucial decision: where to strike first. He conferred with his ally, the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Both the British and Soviets wanted to see Germany defeated as soon as possible. On November 8, 1942, Allied forces invaded North Africa in the greatest military landing operation up to that time. President Roosevelt, the first president to leave the country during wartime, met with Churchill in Casablanca, Morocco, early in 1943, and announced that they would accept only unconditional surrender by the Axis nations. In other conferences, Roosevelt talked with both Premier Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union and Churchill. They became known as the Big Three. Roosevelt also conferred about the war with Japan with Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek of China in 1943.
We are making sure, absolutely irrevocably sure, But this time the lesson is driven home to them once and for all. Yes, we are going to be rid of outlaws this time.
Life in the Roosevelt White House was relaxed and informal, and in the beginning, FDR and the First Lady entertained a great deal. An indoor swimming pool was installed so the president could exercise his crippled legs, and his many grandchildren stayed in the executive mansion from time to time. But once the United States entered World War II, the Roosevelts reduced their entertaining, and engineers built a bomb shelter in the White House basement. As the presidential elections of 1944 approached, the rigors of war and his crippling polio had left Roosevelt in poor health. He didn't want to run for an unprecedented fourth term, but feared what a wartime change in leadership might do to the country. In June of 1944, the Republicans nominated Governor Thomas Dewey of New York for president and Governor John Bricker of Ohio for vice president. The Democrats nominated Senator Harry S. Truman of Missouri as Roosevelt's new vice president. Roosevelt won another easy re-election, but his inaugural address was one of the shortest in American history. It lasted only 6 minutes. Roosevelt's health was deteriorating, and just 2 days after his inauguration, he left to meet Churchill and Stalin at Yalta, a famous resort in the southern Soviet Union. They mapped out their final assault on Germany and the post-war occupation of Europe. When he returned, he traveled to the family retreat in Warm Springs, Georgia, for some rest. On April 12, 1945, while sitting for an official portrait, he complained of a headache, then fell to the floor and died of a cerebral hemorrhage. As news of his death spread, a crowd gathered outside the White House. Inside, Harry S. Truman took the oath of office as the nation's 33rd chief executive. Millions of people mourned the dead president as he was returned by train to Washington and then to New York to be buried on the grounds of his home at Hyde Park. Born into a wealthy family, Franklin Delano Roosevelt entered politics because he believed it offered the greater opportunity for public service. He had a colorful personality and was known for his friendly smile, flashing eyes, and genial manner. And when he told Americans that the only thing they had to fear was fear itself, they believed him.